Welcome to Omni Edition Garden City. My name is Evan Chapman. Mario Impemba has been the voice of the Detroit Tigers for the past 10 years and has recently written a book about his experiences. It's called If These Walls Could Talk, Detroit Tigers. He recently signed that book and gave a short lecture at the Garden City Public Library. I had the chance to talk with him about everything it took to write that book and his experiences as a broadcaster. So, Mario, can you give us a brief synopsis of your career, so far as a broadcaster? Obviously, you're the voice of the Tigers and the Oakland Grizzlies basketball team. Could you just tell us, kind of how you came up?
Well, it's been a long journey, that's for sure. I graduated from Michigan State back in 1985 and decided that, I needed to get a job anywhere. So my first job was in a small town in West Texas, and I got about 9 months worth of experience there, and I had to get out. So I got out. And then from that point on, I got into minor league baseball, did 8 years in the minor leagues, and finally got my first big league job with the Anaheim Angels at that time back in 1995, and then got a job with the Detroit Tigers as a natural progression. I wanted to get back home, and I've been here now for 13 seasons. So the people don't often realize that the road you have to take, and unless you're in the business, it's hard to realize that you got to pay your dues, but that's basically what I did.
And you are a native Detroiter, originally from Sterling Heights, as it says in your book. How is it coming home? How exciting was that for you to call the team that you're a fan of?
Yeah, well, that was ultimately what I wanted to do. My first goal was to get a big league job, and I did that with the Angels. But my ultimate goal was to do it back here in Detroit because I grew up watching so many great Tigers broadcasters, whether it was Ernie Harwell, Paul Carey, Al Kaline, and George Kell. Those guys were idols to me, and to be able to do that in this city, which is really rich and deep in broadcast history, was a thrill. I grew up watching Tigers games, used to go down to Michigan in trouble as a kid all the time, and now to be able to do it here in Detroit is to me, the ultimate dream.
That's wonderful. What prompted you to write the book? Now, I heard you talking to people earlier. You kind of got approached, and could you just give us a brief let us know how you got about it?
Sure. My co-author, Mike Eisenberg, is coordinating producer at Fox Sports Detroit, and he approached me during the playoffs a couple of years ago and said, the Tigers are really hot right now. I know you've got a lot of stories from your career. Why don't we put that into a book? And I thought at the time, well, look, I'm not Ernie Harwell, and I haven't been around that long. I mean, it's only been 20 years in the business, but I decided why not? I had a lot of stories already written. We sculpted a book. It took about a year, and it's been a great process. It's been fun. A lot of the stories are concerning the Tigers, but it really starts from the beginning of my career all the way up to my Tigers days, and there's some interesting stuff in there, and hopefully the people will enjoy it.
And how different was it actually writing your thoughts down rather than just saying them? I can't imagine that'd be kind of difficult.
It was much harder. On television or radio, you do your thing and whatever happens, happens. But in writing, you always go back and you want to make it perfect, and you're always tweaking. And that was the biggest challenge for me, trying to make it as perfect as I could. And then I finally realized, do the best job you can in writing this thing and let's get it out. But that was one of the biggest challenges, trying to get it as perfectly as I could. But the written word and the spoken word are much different, so it was a bit of a challenge.
And you talk about knowing Ernie, learning from Ernie. How cool was it to actually sit down and call a game with him?
That was wild. I did it a couple of times, actually. He filled in for my partner, Rod Allen, a few times. And one of the first games I did with him turned out to be a 15 or 16-inning game with Roger Clemens on the mound against the Yankees. And it was such a surreal experience for me. We almost called 2 games together because it went so long. But I'd learned a lot from him, more so about life than broadcasting, really. I mean, he was a tremendous man, a tremendous influence on me. He was a very loyal man, and it struck me, he was always willing to help the young guys coming up in the business. He never felt like somebody was trying to take his job. He just wanted to help people, and that was Ernie, and that was the most special thing about working with him.
And, we know you love Ernie. Everybody here in Detroit loves Ernie. Who are some of your other favorite broadcasters? Maybe guys you've worked with, guys you've worked, in a booth across the diamond from.
Well, there are a lot of guys that I've actually worked with coming up in the minor leagues and in the big leagues. A few of them are in the major leagues now. Ken Korak is the announcer for the Oakland Athletics. Vince Cotroneo is the number 2 announcer for the Athletics. Some of my favorite guys to pick their brains, Steve Stone, who does the White Sox broadcast, has got a tremendous amount of knowledge and stories. But you work with a lot of people, and I remember growing up, I would listen to Ernie specifically, but I was also one of those kids that would try and pull in the Cardinals games, listen to Jack Buck. pull in the Cubs games and listen to Jack Brickhouse and Harry Carey. Listen to Mark Holtz doing the Rangers game. So there were a lot of different guys, and I think you kind of develop your style by listening to everybody and incorporating it to what you do.
Okay. And now I think one of the things that struck me in your book the most was that you said you still kind of get butterflies, you still get excited right before you go on. What's that like to still have that excitement?
Well, I think you need to have it, otherwise you need to find something else to do. Because every night, no matter how tired you are, how late in the season it is, and it's a grind, believe me, both physically and mentally, you still have to be able to, once that red light goes on, be a little bit nervous. A good nervous energy is always good. For me, there are times, especially early in my career, where it almost consumed me and it almost kept me from doing my job. I think that's one of the reasons I put it in the book and some of the challenges that as broadcasters you go through. There are some times the pressure really starts to get to you. And so you try and mitigate that just by thinking that you've had a lot of experience. Let's just go out and do what we've done over and over and over. But it's good to have a little bit of butterflies and some nervous energy to kind of get you going through the night.
Well, that's good. Do you have any advice for young broadcasters? Obviously, I'm a young broadcaster. Yeah. Do you have any advice for us?
Yeah, doing what you're doing right now. I think you need practical experience. I mean, you probably should try and get your degree. That's what I did because it makes you a well-rounded person. But ultimately, when you go and get a job, people are going to look at that degree and say, okay, that's good, but now show me a tape. And you really need to kind of hone your skills early on in your career by doing as many games, or if you want to be a talk show, doing some talk show stuff. But there are so many opportunities, whether it's through the internet, calling college games or high school games. But it's important, I think, to hone your skills in doing as many live events as you possibly can.
So you've seen all kinds of memorable moments. What sticks out as the most memorable from your time with the Tigers? Obviously, there's the imperfect game, no hitters, etc. Which one is at the top of your list?
Hard to pick one, but I keep going back to one, and that would be the Maglio home run against the Athletics in Houston Street back in 2006, which swept the A's out of town and vaulted the Tigers into the World Series. I think people still around baseball never believed that the Tigers were that good or would get to the World Series or have a chance. And then all of a sudden Ordonez does this for a city that just erupted, and it was just great to see how Tigers fans and the Tigers responded to such a great moment. And it's a moment that I still have on my DVR that occasionally I'll go back, play it over and over again because it was just so cool. It brought a city together.
Now I have to ask you about the current Tigers team. They've made deals for Joaquin Soria. They got David Price. They got rid of Austin Jackson and Drew Smiley. How do you think they're going to fare from here on out going into the playoffs, hopefully, and maybe making it to the World Series?
Well, I still think they have a very good offensive team, even though Jackson, who is really coming on now, is out of that leadoff spot. They're going to have to fill that hole. How they're going to do that is going to be interesting going forward, whether who's going to play center field or who's going to bat leadoff. But there's still plenty of offensive pieces, Kinsler and Martinez and Cabrera, and J.D. Martinez had a great year, that I think offensively they'll be okay. But now pitching-wise, their starting rotation is second to none in the league. I know that the Athletics got really good in getting Lester as well, but if they can figure the bullpen out, this team is as good as any, if not better than most, and certainly has a great chance to win it all.
It was wonderful talking to Mario Impemba about his book, If These Walls Could Talk, Detroit Tigers. And you can get those wherever books are sold, be that in a brick-and-mortar store or on the internet. My thanks to Jason Marrow, Christian Gibbons, Dan York, and of course, Mario Impemba for sitting down with me and having this wonderful chat. That's it for Omni Edition Garden City. I'm Evan Chapman. Have a great day.